Welcome back to the France Made Simple podcast, where I share everything I've learned during my 23 years here in France, living and working here, being unemployed, self-employed, looking for work, not looking for work, staying at home with the kids, bringing up the kids, kids going to uni, you name it, I've done it. And during that time, I've also moved around a lot. And the last episode we did, I think, was some questions that people had sent in. And one of the questions was, where have you lived in France and what were the places like? What did you like, didn't like about the different areas? And I have lived in quite a few different areas, so I thought it might be interesting today to chat that one through. And this is a bit of a longer and more involved subject. I'm going to stick with that one question for today. So, where have I lived in France? I started off in Brittany when we very first moved here back in 2002, and I didn't like Brittany. Now, having said that, I recently went on holiday to Brittany with my boyfriend and his son, and we went to the Ile de Crozon, and we absolutely loved it. Everybody was so nice and warm and welcoming and friendly, and the customer service was excellent. And he was raving about it as well. He's French and saying, my God, the people are so nice here. So I think when I moved to Brittany, I was in an area that wasn't particularly user-friendly, shall we say. It was very quiet, very rural. It wasn't like the Normandy that I'd known from visiting on holidays. And I didn't ever really settle there. So when the opportunity came to move, we did grab that opportunity and run with it. And I also feel that now I know that certain places in Brittany, certain villages have become, I would say, slightly inundated with English speakers to the extent that there's more children in the school speaking English than French or Breton, which again is not something that I particularly wanted for my kids. So I'm very glad that we did make that move when we did. The next place we lived in was the 47 department, the Lot-et-Garonne. We arrived there and it was brilliant because it was hot and sunny, and the house we were living in had a swimming pool, and we had a great few months there before we bought a house in a village. That's another story. I'll get onto that in a minute. But again, it was very quiet, very rural, and I think the kind of crux came one Sunday afternoon when we were sitting in a local playground with the kids and thinking, well, there really is nothing to do around here at the weekends. Again, that was 20 years ago, and a lot of France, a lot of the regions have really changed in the last 20 years, and there's lots more going on now everywhere than there was. But at that point, it was just too quiet, too agricultural. I mean, I love the countryside, don't get me wrong, but I do need to be able to work as well. And at that time, I was working outside of the house and teaching English, and there just wasn't the opportunities available in that particular region. So as I say, we then moved out of the lovely house with the swimming pool and we bought a house in a hilltop Bastide village. And we did that classic British thing of absolutely screwing up by walking through the front door, falling in love with the staircase and being overwhelmed at the amount of house we could get for our money. It was like, oh my God, we can buy all of this for this. 450 square metres over 3 floors of maison de maître. Well, that's a lot of walls to paint and a lot of floors to hoover. So we'd literally been there about 2 weeks before we looked at each other and said, oh my God, this was a bad mistake, wasn't it? It turned out the village was an even worse mistake. It was like living in a zombie apocalypse movie. I kid you not. The neighbours would sit, it was, those kind of very narrow medievally type streets, and the neighbours opposite would sit outside from morning to evening on their chairs outside the front door. So every time I opened the shutters in our first floor sitting room, they would shout, bonjour, voisin. And the first time I thought, oh, that's lovely and friendly, so I said bonjour. But I didn't realise they were quite elderly and didn't remember every time they'd said bonjour. So they would literally say bonjour voisin 10 times before lunchtime. And it got to the stage where I couldn't go near the sitting room windows because somebody was going to say hello to me. It was just awful. It was, I cannot explain just how kind of remote and inbred and like something out of a Zola novel that particular village was. People just walked up and down the streets all day looking like zombies. I remember another occasion when my husband was servicing the car and he had to do it in the street because we didn't have a garage, and he was on his hands and knees. I think he was probably lying on his back looking at the engine, and this sort of crowd of onlookers gathered round, but nobody said anything. They just stood there kind of swaying and rocking backwards and forwards. It really was like the beginning of Shaun of the Dead. So that wasn't our greatest move by any means. We then went on holiday to Biarritz, took the kids camping, and thought, oh my goodness, this region is amazing. There's the sea, mountains, Spain. Obviously, that comes with a massive price tag. So we ended up moving to the Pays Basque, but further inland. Again, very lovely if you like sheep and rugby and doing la fête, la fiesta in the summer and drinking copious amounts. Not so great if you're just moving there as an outsider. Very beautiful, but not terribly welcoming. And at that particular point in time, there were a lot of Parisian second homes being targeted by Basque separatist groups, blowing them up. So that became our standing running joke in the family that the Pays Basque was come home to a real fire. If anybody remembers that slogan from the UK in the 80s. So then we thought, no, Pays Basque is not for us and we can't afford to buy in this particular area anyway. So we hopped over the border, so to speak, the frontier, into the next department, Les Landes, department number 40, which is fine if you like pine forests and cycling and outdoor activities and lots of rain. Or you live on the coast, you can afford to live on the coast and live near to some of the really fabulous surfing beaches. Not so great if you just want to, again, it's a bit of a cultural desert in terms of outside of the summer and outside of outdoor activities, there's not that much going on there. It's absolutely brilliant as a region for sporting enthusiasts. And if you want to be able to get to the Pyrenees and throw yourself off a mountain attached to some, whatever they are, not wings, parapente or whatever, paraglide, abseil, canyon, absolutely brilliant. If, like me, you are a dog walker and horse rider, and okay, you've got lovely trails in sandy forests, but a lot of the region, if you don't live within easy access of that, the endless torrential rain in the winter months just gets a bit wearing. So now I am back in Normandy. And when I left the Landes for Normandy, all my friends down there were kind of like, oh my God, how are you going to survive the frozen north? Well, I've got news for you. I know there's different regions in different parts of Normandy and different climates that, vary according to which microclimate you're in. But around here, it's very nice, thank you. The last winter, which was my first winter living here full time, was an absolute doddle compared to winter in the Landes or the Pays Basque. Yes, it rains, but it will rain in the morning. Then the sun will come out, it will be really windy, the ground will dry out, it might rain a bit again, then a bit more wind, a bit more sun. It's nice and changeable and maritime, and I quite like that. It's also not too hot or too cold, because the Landes had got much, much hotter. In the 15 years that we lived there, I saw a big difference in terms of climate change. The summers got way hotter and the winters got way wetter. So I do like the weather here. The people are incredibly warm and friendly and welcoming. I've always noticed that about the Normans. And so far, so good. Whether I'll stay here for the rest of my life remains to be seen. But currently, I'm a very happy blow-in Norman. So those are the places I've lived in France. I have to say, I like Normandy the best. But then I'd always loved Normandy. I'd spent a lot of time here on holiday as a child. All of them have their pros and cons. The 47 has changed enormously since we were there. So if you're looking to buy there now, don't let me put you off. The same for Brittany. And there are different places and parts of Les Landes. Some have got more going on than others, and the Pays Basque, again, some villages are much more open to incomers and welcoming than others. So do pick your location. We've done episodes about choosing where to live, but I know there's been some requests for some more, so I am going to do that because there's a lot to factor in when you're looking at a different region. And even within that region, there's a massive amount of variation, and you do need to get it right. Otherwise, like me, you'll end up moving quite frequently, much to my kids' general disgust. Anyway, I hope that's been interesting, and thank you for the question. I can't remember who sent that in, but do keep the questions coming. I'm always happy to answer them. Have a great week, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.